everyone, welcome back to week 3 of our series, Committed. And we've been talking about how commitment is worth the effort. Right? In week 1, we looked at how King Solomon said that commitment, it means that we're all in. We can't kind of be committed, but it's worth the effort. And then last week, we talked about being committed in our relationship with God. That God is with us and He is for us. And He's demonstrated that over and over, that He's committed to us. And so we talked about what our response should be. And we've been talking about how commitment is the tool that helps us get the most out of life. Now, this week, we're going to talk about being committed to community. No other generation in history has been so deeply marked by the lack of willingness to commit. I mean, just take a look at your resume or your dating history or even your social life. There are a lot of reasons that we avoid commitment. One of those is FOMO, right? The fear of missing out, the fear of a better option coming on later, being selfish with our time. We don't want to feel stuck and confined with our promises and commitments, but keeping our options open and struggling to commit to something, honestly, it makes us untrustworthy. I mean, just think about it. We don't really thrive when we try to keep our options open and we have a little bit of this and a little bit of that on our plate. No, it's exactly the opposite. When we really thrive, when we really find meaning and purpose, it's when we limit our options and we really commit to something and dig in. I see this all the time with dating relationships, right? A guy is into this girl, but he's struggling and their relationship is back and forth because he's not really sure if she's the one for him. But when he takes a moment to seek some clarity and he decides to commit, to put a ring on it, all of a sudden he realizes things became much more stable in their relationship after he stopped considering leaving as a viable option. You can't build a relationship or a career or a friendship or even a social life if you're thinking about bailing at the same time. You need to commit and follow through in order to experience peace. It says in James chapter 1 verse 6, the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea blown and tossed by the wind. Have you ever met someone that constantly second-guessed and doubted their own decisions or direction? They wouldn't commit to anything. It's like there's this storm inside of them. And it continues in verse 7 and 8. It says that person, the person that struggles to commit, they should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. Now, these verses are a pretty strong statement that God values our commitment. It says that we shouldn't expect to receive anything from God if we're living in this state of constantly changing our mind, avoiding commitment, and doubting our decisions. I don't know about you, but that is convicting to me. But check out how Proverbs praises a woman for being decisive. Proverbs 31:16 says, she considered a field and she buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. Check this out. She considers it and then she makes a decision. She decides. There's no maybes. There's no wavering. She considers the field. She buys it and commits to it. And then immediately she plants a vineyard and starts to bear fruit. This is what commitment should look like in our relationships. I mean, it's very likely that every person watching this video has had a close relationship with someone at some point in your life. Maybe that was a sibling or a parent, or it was a friend you went to school with, or maybe someone that lived down the street. But those are the relationships that mark us. They matter. Those are also the relationships that God uses to make us more like Him. Because we can't grow spiritually unless we're connected relationally. That's how God has designed us to function. I mean, you can just look at what Jesus said was the most important thing in life. There's these religious leaders and they're circled around Jesus and they're asking him these questions and they ask him, hey, what's the most important thing in life? You've said a lot of really good stuff, Jesus. You've told us some important things, but if you were to simplify it down to just one thing, what would you say, Jesus, is the most important thing? And he responds in Mark chapter 12, verses 30 and 31. It says, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. And then he continues and he says, the second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. God has set things up where we can't really connect with him unless we are also connected with other people. The way that God changes us and grows us is most often demonstrated in the relationships we have with the people around us. Community isn't just a nice option, it's a necessity, like food and water and shelter. Our relationship with other people becomes a real-world setting where we practice the love and other attributes that a relationship with God creates in us. Here's what we believe marks someone that's committed to community. There are three things. The first thing is this: you need to show up. If you're going to be committed to community, to being in relationship with people and living life together, it may sound overly simple, but you need to actually show up. You need to commit to being there and being a part of the group, to making it a priority. Here's the second thing: you need to join in. You need to participate. No relationship is healthy when only one side is actively committed and participating. If you want to experience the kind of community that's going to mark your life, you need to join in and participate. And here's the third thing: you need to be real. You need to open up about who you are, not a version of yourself that you want people to see, but who you really are. And if you'll commit to showing up, joining in, and being real, you're going to begin to experience life-changing community. And that is something worth committing to. My hope is by now you're starting to agree that commitment is worth the effort, that it's the tool God uses to help us get the most out of life. And so we need to make the decision to go all in. Find something worth doing and invest all of who you are into that thing. And maybe over the last couple of weeks, you've been challenged to live a more committed life when it comes to your relationship with Jesus. And I think that is a huge step. Making the decision to commit to your relationship with Jesus, it is going to transform you. Or maybe tonight, you're recognizing your need for community. People in your life that are committed to you and that you're committed to. But here is the deal. Commitment is nothing more than a good idea if you don't actually do something. You can commit to running a marathon, but unless you get off your couch, you aren't really committed to anything other than Netflix. So let's be real. What are you feeling called to commit to? I want you to share that with your group. And remember, if you truly want to be part of a healthy community, you have to show up, join in, and be real. So be honest about where you are and where you want to be, and then find ways to help hold each other accountable to these new commitments. It is worth the effort.